Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I bring to you, I guess, a timely video with Valorant doing the whole Alpha versus Omega thing. This leads perfectly into how I want to talk about creating versus destroying. So, if you saw my patch 12.0 review, can't blame me if you didn't. Uh, I talk about how Teo, with his one change, now absolutely fucks most sentinels. He now has damage on his stun, which means that you can obliterate a trip there, a camera there, and then salvos the trips over there and there. And then, if that's all saying, you didn't throw out your stealth drone and find the fucking sentinel to suppress anyway, and then take it out from there. So, that's not entirely unique to Tejo, really. Um, Especially with a double value out of guided salvage where you could either break trips or delay post plant. I matched that up against Sova, where previously Sova was the only real initiator that had tools to break trips or things like that, which we needed another one of, which is this whole thing that I want to get to. TLDR for the rest of this video and for the entirety of the video is that I don't think it's a good idea to punish agents for being the only thing possible for some of them. I hope that'll get clearer as we go on, but right, like the reason you saw Sova so much, especially when there are ciphers in play, is because he has a scan and can get rid of trips and has a good ult. Well, now we have somebody that has a scan with a drone. You know, it's not the same scan, but it is a scan. Can get rid of trips and has a good ult. That's what you need to do. So while I am like, oh my gosh, Tejo Silva comps together or Tejo Yoru means that Sentinels are going to get absolutely obliterated. Yeah, that's kind of there too. But that isn't to say that that's a you now need to nerf Tejo and make it so that only Silva can do it. Because when you only have these agents, they seem more powerful by comparison. I want to go to Yoru for a second here because yeah, it took the community way too long to figure out Yoru was busted. Hell, I said it years ago. Several people have said it, and I'm still going to hold on to that. So I think it's really fucking stupid that people are now like, "Oh, you have to nerf Yoru," after years of Yoru won't work because he goes to the same spot and shit, and Jet has been dashing on the same spot for years, and oh my gosh, but Yoru, we're going to find out how to counter Yoru somehow. Stupid shit. But Yoru now is filling up a role in a lot of comps of second initiator because he has a flash and has clone. So while some people do use the clone, well, take some back, but while a lot of people use the clone to act like they are not going to immediately peek after the walking clone, the ones that are smarter with Yoru will get rid of trips, and the flash will initiate with you, and your ult will get you information. Cough, cough, initiator shit. And it's to say that they kind of tried that again with Neon, where, alright, something to get you on site, your entire team if you really want to, a wall of smoke, as well as a stun, right? That's pretty good. So while you're not getting information like some initiators do, I'd say outside of a flash, you're as good as Breach, and Breach isn't that good. And, well, you're better than Breach, and Breach isn't that good. And, well, you nerf stuns. So, if you nerf stuns across the board, which you kind of have to because of deadly utilities such as these three here, that being Tejo, Sova, and Viper, right? There's some things in there that can actually get a kill off of it. You have to be mindful of stuns. So, by effect, Neon and the community getting better, hitting fucking sliding neons that you know is going to come after the fatal, um, on the angle that you already expect, right? So now Neon doesn't necessarily have the same potential to do that duelist pseudo initiator situation that Yoru can. But that isn't to say that I think they should never try again with something like that. You look at possibly this is a stretch, by the way, but Yoru isn't, of course, the only duelist with the Flash. We've seen Phoenix time and time again throughout history be a second duelist, if not the first. In the first few years of Valorant, really first two, I guess. Um, you saw double duelist, and on some of those maps, Phoenix was first one in, while Jet was the follow up, right? Because guess what? Phoenix has a flash and had an ult that lets you initiate, lets you get information. It was fine, right? Um, Phoenix has gotten buffed, and I actually put out a tweet like a couple of months ago, well, maybe a month ago, I don't know. Whenever Blender was happening, that I'm like, I'm just finding out some things I never really myself looked too much into Phoenix, but there's lineups and shit that I think teams are underutilizing. And sure enough, you look at Project Blender, Vitality has Sayonara, I think it was, on Phoenix. Paper Rex is bringing back the Phoenix. Phoenix works, so if they kill Yoru, I don't know how to tell you this, but you can do the same comps most of the time with Phoenix. And I'm not even bullshitting. Like you genuinely can do a lot of the things with a Phoenix as well, and with a lower cost ult, maybe even to better effect. We'll see about that. But he wasn't necessarily ever seen as a pseudo initiator just off the flash because the flash is short range and the wall is short range. So it's like very quick burst of things. But, you know, should they make another duelist with the flash? You could argue Reyna has one. It's a near sight, whatever, right? But a pop flash, should they ever make another duelist with the pop flash? I would argue yes. And while you could go, oh, that would just mean that you're running Yoru, insert new duelist initiator hybrid, I don't think you're ever going to completely drop a role besides Sentinel, apparently, right? I don't see that happening. Well, I take that back. We have done completely no duelist, which is funny. Duelist and Sentinel are like the hard ends of the spectrum. So we have seen teams completely drop duelist on things like Icebox, and we have seen triple initiator Ascent. Barring Sentinels and duelists, you probably need at least an initiator and a controller. So, on that note, let's talk about these controllers. And it's through this video that I think I'm making another Harbor video because now I understand what they were going for with Harbor, and I can't fault them. They tried, they just got to do something different, and it's something that everybody asked for. But coming to this with Viper, you have an agent that people classically go, "Oh my gosh, we got to nerf Viper again. Viper is just way too strong." Which Viper is different because Viper has this fucking wall. So, while the argument can be made, all right, Viper, you're up. You are going to block vision for all of this shit, and you're going to do something like that, right? Close to that. All right, cool. So yeah, a Viper is the only one that can really do it, and it's not the decay anymore. Because honestly, if teams, and as we see in panic times, if you just disrespect it, because it only does 10 damage now, like unless you stand in the fucking middle of it, you can swing and kill the Viper, um, or you could just swing in general, right? It's not gonna ruin your day. But Viper is the only one that can give you this much line of sight blocking, which is something that we all expected out of Harbor. Now, Harbor doesn't have the funky thing, and also this Harbor's not updated. But I didn't want to do this on Valoplant, because Valoplant, if I want to switch maps, which I intended to do this video, I'll have to keep putting the agents back on the board, and that was a whole mess. But say all that to say, we saw Harbor as the equivalent because he has walls, right? It's oh my gosh, he had wall. It's not quite Viper because now I can get a, I had a refreshable wall previously. I was walling all over the place, walling all over him. Um, wall. And the problem with Harbor was that you also still have to be there. If I want to wall and, well, the debuff, Viper doesn't debuff her team at any point. Well, if you stand in a snake bite, I guess. But, if I want to do what Viper does here, classically, right? If I want to do that, okay, I have to be here as Harbor. I don't want to have to be here. I don't want to have to be somewhere to smoke, which is the same thing that gets annoying when you're looking at a Brim, and then they finally brought Clove over, which Clove has a whole different benefit to playing, which is why you see in ranked. We're just gonna put that icon over there, act like it's the same thing. Um, and possibly pro play. People are going to get there. I think there's some things with Clove that they're going to get there. Um, but the trade off is like now, instead of, being range restricted with these two, you at least don't have to be in the exact spot to put it down. You can be approximately here to drop Brim smokes. You can, wrong thing. You can approximately be there, right? You can set your team up from over here or here. But to do harbor smoke like of the wall, which is was the problem, well is the problem still, I have to stand right here. Now, in that though, comparing them, this is where I think I might make this an entire separate video, but as a light touch. I understand why they did what we see as Omen again. Not even 2.0, but Omen point 0.5. Because now, the other thing, the halfway point, is that you have a smoke that you can now place from the same places you could as an Omen, pretty much. Where you could do that, cool. But now, Harbor can do that. While getting a little bit of initiation with. Oh, they just come. Right, sorry. But we're just going to bring metal. With a little bit of initiation with Act Like This is Storm Surge. Bam, bam, and we're going to bring Fade for the ult. And with New Reckoning. So, they had the wall like Viper, the orb smoke like Omen, the anywhere placed orb smoke like Omen, and initiation like the fifth agent slot that you might be replacing, like Breach. That's the better one, like Breach. And a blind in a way with a near sight to a blind, a real blind. So you take shitty blind for shitty blind. Harbor, in theory, should be rounding out more comps, but because they went so far out and half-assed all aspects of the kit, it makes it harder for you to justify picking the Harbor. Imagine if Harbor had two smokes. Then you'd have a controller that has two smokes and a wall? And by two smokes, I mean two placeable smokes. Like two smokes I could do from over here, and then, alright, then I wall over here. That's a bit much, so I can't fault them there. Previously, and since we have the old harbor here, apparently, um, you had a wall that was coming back up, but you also still had to stand somewhere, put maybe a wall here, right? You put that wall up, say you do it the exact same spot as Viper, but then you for whatever reason. Let's just say that you still feel the need to do this shit, even though you would never do this, right? To block off these sight lines, even though you already did it with the wall. But hey, just stick with me. Now, by changing that, and you still had a lineup to throw, so you could do this too, but you're not doing that. You weren't doing that. They went too wide. The thing that people were asking for was to just make Harbor better. However, they did try to fill their own design space with, okay, the two best smokers across the game are Viper and Omen. What if we put them together and make Harbor? So, that might be a dedicated video, but say this to say that it's better when they try to make another of the thing that we know works. Then to go, hey, we know this works, how about we make it shittier? As we saw in patch 11.08, where you took all the shit and just made it a little bit worse. So now everybody feels worse playing your game. Like now just everything's just a little bit more shit. Huh? You take an agent that wasn't really good. Yeah, even he across the board is just more shit for whatever reason. Then you have to boost how fast this gets to the wall. Pfft, okay, right? This stun is worse. Like this ult is worse. This is worse, but they just recently buffed it again. Like, come on now, right? Still only 2.5. So, say all this to say that Riot, if for whatever reason, sees this, and if this reaches anybody, I would think about encouraging to buff other shit instead of nerfing the shit we know that works. Because take something like, well, I don't think Breeze is on here. Yeah. And New Breeze, they had to rework the entire map because the only viable controller on it was Viper. Why is that? Because Viper was the only controller that can block off long fucking sight ranges across the way. Right? Only one that can do some shit like this. Only one. Right? So, you're not doing this on Pine, but just imagine that this is B of Breeze. Uh, or A of Breeze, I guess. A of Breeze. Right? Only one that was doing that. And when you design your entire game to only be able to be done by one agent, well, then is that on Viper or is that on map design? I think that's on map design. And they realize that, so now you have Harbor more viability. And mind you, Harbor was played on Breeze, but Harbor also was ass. But now you can take an Astra and actually smoke some shit somewhere between pyramids. Let's keep using this as like everything. You can now use Astra on Breeze with decent success, right? So, while I am worried about Tejo now having damage on his stun, I would have preferred it being a different agent entirely because now there's a lot that Tejo can open up by himself. Um, this isn't to say that I want Tejo nerfed. It's just I would prefer it if you made the next initiator have an ability that can get rid of trips. And because if you look at the roster, also scanned. I don't know how you're going to do it, but if you make another Sova, that's what you kind of need to do. However, now that you've given the pop trip power over to Tejo Stun, that again, it's a throwaway ability. Throwaway abilities being that it wasn't going to actually kill, so you can use it on utility, except for it might finish somebody off, right? Um, Now you can focus on the next initiator, only having a scan like Fade and Silva, better than KO, and probably throw a drone in there too. Like probably throw a drone in there too. So the next initiator that you all make over at Riot, scan and drone. That's fine. You need somebody to compete with these two. Compared to just continuously nerfing Fade and Sova every time they breathe. Hey, that Sova threw a shock dart, threw a recon dart, 60-second cooldown. Fucking hell, my goodness. Right? That just feels bad for Sova players, Fade players, right? Then you see Fade take the lead because you at least have two prowlers compared to the one drone, maybe, but and that's also because, well, Sentinels are looking pretty poor, so you don't really need somebody to break all the trips right now. You don't really need it. It's helpful, but you don't really need it. You need somebody to chase off the chamber holding an angle, chase off the veto, possibly. And I have veto things. You also still need to fix veto. I just submitted a bug report because that fix didn't actually happen. But yeah, I'm gonna stop there because I think I've said enough on this piece that instead of just continuously nerfing and nerfing and nerfing the characters that actually fill a niche within the game, make more of them. Just make more that fill approximately the same niche. Do I need to break trips? Yeah, fine, Tejo, you're up. Do I need to block long lines of sight? Maybe we rethink how we did the wall. Maybe the wall becomes the signature again, and you just give him two smokes that way. That's fine. You already had him walling off the ass with a cove and then two walls and then a third wall. Like it's fine. It's fine. Instead of let's nerf Yoru again, how about you make another duelist that has initiator util? Maybe the next duelist has a fucking scan or a drone that's better than Boombot. I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, that's my piece on that. So, if you like the video, like it. Got a comment from a comment. And until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.